My boyfriend said, "Your controlling behavior is suffocating me. I need someone who trusts me." I had only asked why his boys' night photos had women in them. I replied, "You were right. I should trust you more." Then I gave him all the freedom he wanted by ending it, when he realized freedom meant no safety net. Hello, everyone. My name is Savannah Cole. I'm 32, and I never thought of myself as a woman who needed to control anyone, especially not a man I loved. I was the opposite. I gave space. I avoided pointless fights. I believed grown adults did not need to be monitored like children. If a man told me where he was going, I trusted him. If plans changed, I expected honesty, not a full report. To me, love was not supposed to feel like surveillance. That was why, when Logan called me controlling, it did not just hurt, it confused me, because the version of me he described sounded nothing like the woman I had been in that relationship. Logan and I had been together for just over a year, long enough for routines to form, long enough for his toothbrush to have a place in my bathroom, long enough for my mother to ask about him without needing to say his name, long enough for me to know how he took his coffee when he went quiet, and which silence meant he was tired versus hiding something. At least I thought I knew. For most of that year, we were stable, not perfect, but steady. We did not have explosive arguments or weekly breakups. We did not turn our relationship into public drama. We were comfortable. And sometimes comfort is dangerous because it makes you explain away things your instincts already noticed. There were small moments that did not fully fit. Logan saying he was too tired to call, then appearing in someone's tagged story an hour later, smiling at a rooftop bar. Logan saying dinner was just the guys, then casually mentioning a woman's name the next morning like he was testing whether I would react. Logan turning his phone face down whenever certain notifications appeared. None of it was enough to accuse him, but it was enough to remember. The night everything shifted started with something small. Logan told me he was going out with the guys. "Just a boys' night," he said, leaning against my kitchen counter. "Nothing exciting. Probably wings, drinks, maybe pool." I smiled and said, "Have fun." And I meant it. I did not ask who was going. I did not ask what time he would be back. I did not ask for photos, updates, or proof. I kissed him goodbye at the door and watched him leave with the kind of easy trust I thought relationships were built on. Later that night, I was in bed scrolling when his friend posted a photo. At first, I almost skipped past it. It was just a crowded table, drinks, blurry laughter, the kind of nightlife picture nobody studies unless their stomach already knows something their mind is trying to deny. Then I saw Logan. He was standing near the middle, one arm resting on the back of a chair. Beside him were two women I did not recognize, not strangers in the background, not random people passing through. They were part of the group. One of them was leaning close enough that her shoulder touched his arm. Then another photo appeared. Same group, same women, Logan smiling. My stomach tightened, but I did not text him. I did not call. I did not send a screenshot with a question mark, even though part of me wanted to. Because people join plans. Friends bring friends. Groups overlap. Not every inconsistency is betrayal. So I put the phone down, but I did not sleep well. The next morning, Logan came over with coffee like nothing had happened. He looked relaxed. Too relaxed, maybe, but I told myself not to build a courtroom in my head before asking one simple question. So I waited until we were sitting at my kitchen table. Then I said calmly, "I thought last night was just you and the guys." That was all. No accusation, no raised voice, no trap, just one sentence. Logan's face changed before he answered. It was fast, but I saw it. Irritation first, then defense, then something colder. "What is that supposed to mean?" he asked. "It means I saw the photos. There were women there." He leaned back like I had thrown something at him. "So now you're checking photos?" "No," I said. "I saw them. There's a difference." He laughed once, but there was no humor in it. "You don't trust me." That sentence landed hard because it moved the conversation somewhere else entirely. I had not said I did not trust him. I had not asked if he cheated. I had not mentioned names, motives, or anything dramatic. I had asked why the night he described did not match the night I saw. "It's not about trust," I said carefully. "I'm asking because what you said and what I saw weren't the same." Logan looked away, jaw tight. Then he said the sentence that changed everything. You always do this, Savannah. I sat still. Do what? Turn nothing into something. Overthink everything. Make me feel like I have to explain every move I make. My throat tightened, but I kept my voice level. I asked one question. And that's how it starts, he snapped. One question, then another, then suddenly I'm defending myself for having a life. That was when I realized he was not answering me. He was rewriting me. In his version, I was not a woman asking for clarity. I was a jealous girlfriend, a controlling girlfriend, a woman who could not handle him having friends, space, or freedom. And once someone decides that is your role, everything you say becomes evidence. He rubbed a hand over his face and said, "Your controlling behavior is suffocating me." Suffocating. The word hit somewhere deep. I wanted to ask him when I had controlled him, when I had stopped him from going out, when I had demanded passwords, locations, explanations. I wanted to ask why a simple question made him react like a man who had been caught. But underneath the anger rising in my chest, something colder formed. Recognition. Logan was not trying to clarify the night. He was trying to make me afraid to ask again. Then he said, softer but sharper, "I need someone who trusts me." And in that moment, I understood something I had not wanted to understand before. He did not want trust. He wanted silence. So I looked at him and said, "You're right." Logan paused. I watched surprise move across his face. I added, "I should trust you more." He relaxed a little, thinking he had won. But what he did not know was that something in me had already stepped back. Because trust is beautiful when it is earned. But when someone uses the word trust to stop you from seeing clearly, it becomes a blindfold. And I was done wearing it. After that conversation, things became strangely calm. Logan acted like we had solved something important. He kissed me before leaving for work, sent me random memes during the day, asked what I wanted for dinner that weekend, like the tension from the kitchen conversation had dissolved overnight. For a few days, I let the calm sit there. Not because I agreed with him, because I was watching him differently now. Before, whenever something felt off, I automatically searched for the explanation that protected the relationship. If details did not line up, I assumed there was context I was missing. If his reactions felt too defensive, I blamed stress, exhaustion, work pressure, anything except the possibility that the reaction itself meant something. But once someone accuses you of being controlling for asking a reasonable question, something shifts. You stop asking. And when you stop asking, you start seeing. A week later, Logan told me he was meeting coworkers after work. "Probably just a couple drinks," he said while buttoning his shirt in my bedroom mirror. "Don't wait up." I looked up from my laptop and smiled lightly. "Okay. No. Who's going? No, what bar? No, what time?" I could see the relief on his face, like he had expected resistance and enjoyed not getting any. Later that night, I was sitting on my couch when my phone buzzed with an Instagram story notification. One of Logan's coworkers had tagged him. I opened it. The first thing I noticed was the lighting. Not a quiet work drink. Loud music, neon lights, a crowded lounge downtown. The second thing I noticed was her, Tessa. I recognized her because Logan had mentioned her before in passing. His ex-girlfriend, the woman he once described as ancient history with a dismissive laugh. Except she did not look like ancient history in that video. She was standing close enough to him that when she leaned toward his ear to say something, his hand automatically moved to her waist. Not dramatically. Not enough to be undeniable proof. Just naturally. Like muscle memory. I watched the clip 3 times. Then I locked my phone and set it face down on the coffee table. My chest hurt, but not in the explosive way people describe betrayal. It was quieter than that. It felt like realizing you had been standing in the cold for hours and only just noticed you were shaking. When Logan came over the next morning, he acted normal again. Too normal. He kissed my forehead while I made coffee and started telling me a story about one of his coworkers getting too drunk. I stirred cream into my cup and said, "I saw Tessa was there." His eyes flicked toward me instantly, just for a second. Then he shrugged. "Yeah, a bunch of people showed up." Again, not technically a lie, but not what he originally presented either. I nodded once. No reaction, no argument. Logan studied my face carefully, waiting for the rest of the conversation. It never came. and that unsettled him more than anger would have. "You okay?" he asked. "Why wouldn't I be?" He hesitated. "I just thought maybe you'd have something to say." That almost made me laugh, because suddenly I understood the real dynamic he wanted. He did not want a girlfriend who trusted him completely. He wanted a girlfriend who questioned him just enough to make him feel wanted, then accepted his explanations so he could feel innocent again. Tension followed by reassurance. But I was no longer participating in that cycle. "You said you needed trust," I reminded him softly. "I'm trusting you exactly the way you asked." The silence after that stretched longer than it should have. Over the next few weeks, I continued the same way. If he canceled plans last minute, I said okay. If he disappeared for hours, I did not ask where he had been. If his stories changed slightly from one day to the next, I did not point it out. The less I reacted, the more obvious everything became. Because people reveal themselves fastest when they stop expecting consequences, Logan started mentioning Tessa more casually. "Tessa actually recommended that restaurant. Tessa said our company might restructure soon. Tessa still knows everybody somehow." Her name entered our relationship like smoke under a door. Quiet at first, then everywhere. One night we were watching a movie at my apartment when his phone lit up on the couch cushion between us. "Tessa." A message preview appeared before the screen dimmed. "Still alive after tonight?" Logan grabbed the phone too quickly, too casually fast. I looked back at the television. He glanced at me carefully. "You can check it if you want." That sentence fascinated me. Innocent people usually just check their phones. They do not perform innocence. "I don't need to," I replied. Again, relief mixed with discomfort crossed his face. That became the pattern. At first he enjoyed the freedom. Then he became confused by it. Then irritated. One Friday evening, he showed up at my apartment unusually quiet. He tossed his keys onto the counter and opened the fridge without saying much. "You're in a weird mood," I said. "I could say the same about you." "What does that mean?" Logan shut the fridge harder than necessary. "You don't care anymore." There it was. Not the cheating, not the lies. The real fear underneath all of it. I folded my arms slowly. "That's not true." "Yes, it is," he said. "You don't ask where I am. You don't text me first anymore. Half the time I feel like you wouldn't even notice if I disappeared for a week." The irony almost hurt. Weeks earlier, my attention was suffocating. Now he was angry because it was gone. "You asked for space," I said calmly. "I asked for trust. And I gave it to you." "That's not the same thing." I already knew that. What he wanted was not trust. He wanted emotional insurance. He wanted the freedom to move however he wanted, while still knowing I would be standing there, waiting, worrying, and quietly proving he still mattered. But I had started emotionally leaving long before the relationship officially ended. That night, after he fell asleep beside me, I stayed awake, staring at the ceiling, while rain tapped softly against the windows. Logan shifted in his sleep and reached for me automatically, his arm settling across my waist. That movement should have felt comforting. Instead, it felt sad. Because even then, part of him assumed I would still be there in the morning, no matter what he did. Around 2 a.m, his phone buzzed again on the nightstand. Logan did not wake up, but the screen lit the darkness long enough for me to see the name. Tessa. Again. This time, I did not even wonder what the message said. I just looked at the rain outside and realized something terrifyingly simple. I was no longer trying to save us. By the next week, something inside me had gone still. Not numb, not heartless, just finished with confusion. For months, I had treated every inconsistency like a puzzle that needed patience. Every defensive reaction became something to decode carefully instead of something to accept directly. But once you stop fighting to preserve a version of someone, clarity arrives fast. And clarity is cold. Logan still came over regularly, still left clothes at my apartment, still kissed me goodbye in the mornings like routine alone could hold a relationship together. From the outside, we probably looked normal. But emotionally, there was already distance between us. He just had not noticed yet. One afternoon, my friend Camille asked me if everything was okay between me and Logan. We were having lunch downtown, and I must have looked distracted because she put her fork down and said, "You've gone weirdly calm lately." I gave a small smile. "Is that a bad thing?" "It depends," she said carefully. Calm before peace and calm before leaving look very different. That sentence stayed with me because she was right. I told her just enough. The argument, the accusations, the way Logan kept twisting simple questions into proof that I did not trust him. Camille listened quietly before asking, "Do you actually think he's cheating?" I thought about it. Then I shook my head slowly. "I think he likes having options," I said, "and I think he likes knowing I'll still be there while he acts single." Camille winced, because that sounded harsher out loud than it had in my head, but it was true, and once I admitted it, I could not unsee it anymore. That same weekend, Logan told me he had a last-minute work event Saturday night. Basically mandatory, he said. I nodded once. Right. Again, no resistance, no suspicion, no tension. By then, he had started watching me more carefully than I watched him. I noticed the pauses after he told me plans, the way he lingered after explanations, waiting for questions that never came. That Saturday evening, I stayed home with an old movie playing quietly in the background. Around 10, my phone buzzed. Camille had sent me a screenshot. No commentary, no gossip, just the image. It was a photo from someone's public Instagram story at a rooftop bar downtown. Logan was there. Tessa was beside him again, this time closer, close enough that her hand rested against his chest while they laughed at something off camera. I stared at the picture without reacting. Then I typed back, "Thanks, that was all." No breakdown, no dramatic call, no confrontation. And weirdly, that scared me more than if I had cried, because I realized the pain was changing shape. It was no longer sharp enough to panic over. It was becoming acceptance. When Logan came over the next morning, he looked exhausted but comfortable, like a man returning from a normal night with nothing to hide. He dropped onto my couch and groaned dramatically. "I'm never drinking tequila again." I muted the television and looked at him. "How was the mandatory work event?" The smallest pause. Then he laughed lightly. "You caught that, huh?" "I saw the rooftop photos." He studied me, bracing, but I simply picked up my coffee again. "No big deal," I said. That disturbed him far more than anger would have. "You're seriously not mad?" "Should I be?" "That depends on what you think happened." I met his eyes evenly. "That's the thing, Logan. I stopped auditioning for the truth." Silence filled the room. He leaned forward, elbows on his knees. "So what, you just don't care anymore?" "I care," I said quietly. "I just don't think asking questions changes anything." His jaw tightened. That's a really messed up way to look at relationships. I almost smiled. A few weeks earlier, questions were the problem. Now, my silence was the problem. Nothing I did was ever going to feel right to someone benefiting from confusion. "I'm doing exactly what you asked me to do," I reminded him. "No," he snapped. "You're acting detached." Maybe he was right. But detachment did not happen suddenly. It happened slowly, after concern got treated like control too many times. After reality became my fault for noticing it. That night, after he left, I sat alone at my kitchen counter for almost an hour. Not crying, not angry, just honest. I was no longer afraid of losing Logan. I was afraid of staying long enough to lose myself trying to keep him. A few days later, the last layer of denial fell apart in the frozen foods aisle of a grocery store. I turned the corner after work and heard someone say my name. I looked up. Tessa, in person. She smiled immediately, like we were old acquaintances instead of two women connected by one increasingly dishonest man. "Savannah, right?" she said warmly. I nodded. "Yeah." "Oh my God, it's been forever. Logan showed me pictures of you." That sentence sat strangely in my chest. She kept talking casually, unaware of the tension underneath the conversation. "He still gets weirdly competitive at trivia after 2 drinks." Still. The word hit me instantly. Not "he used to." Not "back when we dated." Still. Tessa realized it a second too late. Her expression changed. Tiny, but enough. And in that exact moment, I understood something horrifying. This was not new. Whatever line existed between them had probably never fully disappeared. Tessa recovered quickly and smiled awkwardly. "I mean, he used to." I nodded politely, but the damage was already done. Because people accidentally tell the truth when they think the truth is safe. That night, Logan texted me. Everything okay? You've been distant lately. I stared at the message for a long time before replying. Then finally, I sent back, I'm just giving you the freedom you wanted. 3 dots appeared immediately, then disappeared, then appeared again, but no reply ever came, and somehow that silence told me everything. After the grocery store, something changed permanently. Until then, part of me still wanted to believe Logan was simply immature, maybe selfish, maybe emotionally reckless, but still fundamentally honest underneath it all. That illusion disappeared the second I saw recognition on Tessa's face. She had not looked confused when she mentioned him. She had looked comfortable, familiar, like someone talking about a man who had never truly left her life. Once that settled into my mind, every strange moment reorganized itself into something coherent. The defensiveness, the accusations, the way Logan turned my questions into attacks instead of answering them. People get angry about being questioned when the truth creates problems. I did not confront him after that. Not because I was weak, but because I was done chasing clarity from someone who benefited from keeping things blurry. And Logan felt the change immediately. He started texting more often, calling during lunch breaks, sending random selfies from work. At first glance, they looked sweet. Underneath, they were anxious. He was checking whether I was still emotionally there. One evening, he showed up at my apartment with takeout from my favorite restaurant without warning. Normally, I would have smiled, kissed him, made a joke about him finally remembering my order correctly. Instead, I simply stepped aside and let him in. Logan noticed instantly. You okay? He asked carefully. I'm fine. You don't sound fine. Maybe I'm just tired. He watched me for several seconds. Then finally he said, You've been acting really cold lately. Cold, detached, distant. Every word he used now described the woman he had created by making honesty feel unsafe. We ate dinner mostly in silence. Halfway through the meal, Logan put his fork down. Did I do something? There it was, the question he should have answered weeks ago. I looked up slowly. What do you think? His jaw tightened. I'm serious, Savannah. So am I. The tension sharpened, controlled, and heavy. Logan leaned back and exhaled hard. This is exactly what I'm talking about. What is? You punish people emotionally instead of just saying what you want to say. That irritated me more than I expected, because even now, he was rewriting reality, as if my withdrawal appeared out of nowhere instead of after weeks of being told my instincts were toxic. I did say what I wanted to say, I replied calmly. You told me it was controlling. He looked away. For the first time in weeks, Logan did not have a fast response ready. Instead, he rubbed the back of his neck and muttered, I just wanted trust. No, I said quietly. You wanted comfort. His eyes snapped back to mine. You wanted to do whatever made you feel good without anyone making it uncomfortable for you. Those aren't the same thing. Logan stared at the table for several long seconds before saying, You're making me sound like a terrible person. That depends, I answered softly. Do terrible people usually get angry for being asked simple questions? His face hardened again. There it was. Every time the conversation moved too close to honesty, he redirected it toward my tone, my reactions, my behavior. Never the actual issue. I can't talk to you when you get like this, he said finally. I almost smiled because, like this, simply meant calm enough to stop falling for the distraction. He left earlier than usual that night. No kiss goodbye, no lingering at the door, just tension wrapped in silence. And the second the apartment door closed behind him, I felt relieved. That scared me more than any argument we ever had. Because relief is dangerous in a relationship. Relief means someone's absence has started feeling safer than their presence. Over the next week, Logan became increasingly inconsistent emotionally. Some days overly affectionate, other days distant. One morning, he sent me flowers at work with a note that said, Miss you lately, not love you, not thinking of you. Miss you lately, like he could feel me disappearing in real time. Camille noticed too. You already left emotionally, she told me one night over the phone. I don't think I have. You stopped reacting, she said. That's usually the last stage before someone walks away. I hated how accurate that sounded, because I still loved Logan. That was the hardest part. People think relationships end after love disappears. Most of the time, they end while love is still there. Love just stops being enough to survive the damage. A few nights later, Logan invited me to a party one of his coworkers was hosting downtown. The old version of me would have analyzed the invitation immediately. Was he trying to reassure me? Show transparency? Ease guilt? Instead, I simply said yes. The party was crowded, loud, and overly warm from too many people packed into a luxury apartment overlooking the city. For the first hour, things almost felt normal. Logan kept a hand lightly against my back while introducing me to people. He refilled my drink before I asked. He laughed easier than he had in weeks. And for one dangerous moment, I almost let myself believe we could still recover. Then I saw Tessa. She stood near the balcony doors in a black dress, holding a glass of champagne. The second her eyes met mine, something uncomfortable flashed across her face. Not guilt exactly, recognition, like she knew she should not be there while I was. Logan followed my line of sight. His body tensed immediately. Tiny, but obvious once you knew him well enough. "You okay?" he asked too quickly. I looked at him, then at Tessa, then back at him again, and for the first time in weeks I felt completely calm. Not because I trusted him. Because I finally stopped needing him to tell the truth. "I'm fine," I said softly. That answer unsettled him more than if I had screamed. The rest of the night felt strange. Logan stayed close to me, too attentive, too careful. Like a man trying to manage a situation instead of enjoy a party. Meanwhile, I watched everything quietly. The way Tessa avoided standing too near us. The way Logan checked where I was every few minutes. The way his smile arrived half a second late whenever our eyes met. Fear. That was what I saw in him now. Not fear of losing me. Fear of losing control over the story. Around midnight, I stepped onto the balcony alone for air. The city lights blurred beneath the glass railing, while music pulsed faintly behind me. A minute later, Logan followed. "You disappeared," he said. "I came outside. You could have told me." I turned slowly toward him, and for the first time in weeks, I asked a direct question. "Why does Tessa still act like she's part of your life?" Logan froze. Then came the exhale, the defensive posture, the irritation preparing itself, the same pattern all over again. But before he could speak, I quietly said, "Actually, never mind." His expression shifted. What does that mean? It means I don't think the answer matters anymore. The look on Logan's face after that told me he was finally starting to understand what complete freedom actually costs. After the party, Logan changed. Not in the way people change when they become honest, but in the way people change when they realize they are losing control of how they are perceived. He started texting me good morning every day, showing up with coffee, asking about my work, my stress, my sleep. At one point, he even suggested we plan a weekend away together. A month earlier, that effort might have saved us. Now it felt delayed, like watering a plant after the roots had already died. The strangest part was that he never actually addressed the real issue. No confession, no direct honesty, no Tessa and I crossed boundaries. Instead, he behaved like our relationship had simply entered a weird emotional phase, caused equally by both of us. And that finally exhausted me. Not the possibility that he lied, the certainty that he would rather manipulate the atmosphere than speak plainly. One Thursday evening, I came home from work and found Logan sitting outside my apartment door. He stood immediately when he saw me. "You weren't answering your phone." "I was in a meeting." "I called 3 times." I unlocked my door. "Okay." That response irritated him instantly, because nothing got the emotional reaction he expected anymore. Inside the apartment, Logan followed me into the kitchen while I set my bag down. Finally, he said, "Can we actually talk? We've been talking." "No, we haven't," he snapped. "You've been emotionally disappearing for weeks." The irony almost made me laugh. Emotionally disappearing, like I had vanished randomly instead of retreating after being pushed there repeatedly. "What do you want me to say?" I asked quietly. "I want you to stop acting like you already left." That sentence hung in the air between us, because part of him knew it was true. I looked at him carefully. "You told me I was suffocating you." "That's not what I meant." Of course. Now that consequences existed, suddenly none of his words meant what they originally meant. "You said you needed someone who trusted you." "I did." So I trusted you. No, he said sharply. You stopped caring. There it was again. Not freedom, not trust. Attention, validation, emotional access. He wanted the ability to move however he wanted while still feeling secured by me. And the second that security disappeared, panic replaced confidence. I crossed my arms slowly. You didn't want trust, Logan. You wanted silence. His jaw tightened. You're twisting everything. No, I said calmly. I think I finally stopped twisting it enough to protect you. That landed. Hard. For a second, Logan looked genuinely scared. Not angry, scared. Because he realized the version of me who constantly tried to preserve peace was gone. And without that version of me, the relationship looked very different. You think I cheated on you? He asked quietly. The question came weeks too late, maybe months. I thought about answering carefully, then decided not to. I think you liked having me while still behaving like you were emotionally available to other women. He scoffed. That's not cheating. That's not denial either. Silence filled the kitchen. Logan paced once. You became impossible to talk to. I stared at him in disbelief. Even now, my reaction to his behavior was still the bigger issue in his mind than the behavior itself. Why? I asked softly. Because I stopped begging for reassurance? That's not fair. No, I replied. What wasn't fair was making me feel irrational every time reality made you uncomfortable. He opened his mouth, closed it, opened it again. Nothing came out. And in that moment, I realized something deeply sad. Logan genuinely did not understand why this relationship was collapsing, because from his perspective, nothing catastrophic had happened. No public affair, no screaming match, no single betrayal he could point to. Just repeated emotional dishonesty, small enough to defend individually, but devastating when combined. I miss us, Logan said suddenly. That one hurt, because part of me did too. The easier version. The version before suspicion and defensiveness poisoned every conversation. But missing the past does not rebuild trust. It only reminds you what existed before it broke. I looked down briefly. I think you miss feeling safe with me. His expression shifted. That's not the same thing. I think it is. He shook his head, frustrated. Why are you acting like I destroyed everything? I laughed softly, not cruelly, sadly. Because finally, I understood the real disconnect between us. Logan thought relationships survive as long as nobody officially crosses a technical line. I believed relationships survive by protecting emotional security before lines ever need to be discussed. And those two beliefs were never going to survive each other. You know what the worst part is? I asked quietly. He looked at me. You made me feel guilty for noticing things that turned out to be real. His face changed instantly. That sentence reached somewhere deeper, because guilt manipulation only works while the other person still doubts themselves. And I did not anymore. He sat down heavily at the kitchen table and rubbed both hands over his face. I never wanted to lose you. The honesty in that sentence almost broke me because I believed him. Logan probably never intended to lose me. He just wanted freedom without consequences, attention without accountability, comfort without responsibility. And eventually, those contradictions collapse under their own weight. I took a slow breath. This doesn't feel like a relationship anymore. Logan looked up immediately. Savannah, no. Listen to me this time. The room went still. Then I said quietly, I stopped trying to control something I don't trust. For the first time, I said it clearly. No softening, no emotional cushioning, just truth. Logan stared at me like he had finally reached the part of the story where consequences become real. And I think that was the exact moment he understood freedom without emotional safety does not feel powerful. It feels lonely. After that conversation, the relationship did not explode. It dissolved. Logan stayed at my apartment that night, but neither of us slept much. We lay on opposite sides of the bed with silence stretched between us, both understanding something had ended, even if neither of us had officially said the words yet. Around 4 a.m, I woke up and saw him staring at the ceiling. For a second, I almost reached for him automatically. Habit, love, grief. But I stopped myself because physical closeness would have only comforted the fear without fixing the truth underneath it. The next morning, Logan made coffee while the apartment stayed painfully quiet. Usually, he filled silence quickly with random comments, jokes, background noise. That morning, he barely spoke. Finally, while standing near the sink, he asked, "So what happens now?" I looked down at the mug, warming my hands. And for the first time since this started, the answer felt simple. I think we stop pretending this still works. Logan closed his eyes briefly. "You're really ending this?" "No," I said softly. "I think we ended it slowly weeks ago. We're just finally admitting it now." That hurt him. I saw it immediately. Because people can survive conflict longer than they can survive acceptance. Anger still leaves room for hope. Acceptance does not. Logan stayed another hour before gathering his things quietly from my bedroom. His watch charger gone from my nightstand. His jacket disappearing from the back of my chair. Tiny, ordinary objects suddenly became proof that someone no longer belonged there. At the door, he hesitated like he was waiting for me to stop him. I didn't. Not because I did not love him, but because love had stopped being enough to protect me from what the relationship had become. "You know I never cheated on you, right?" he asked finally. Even then, even at the end, that was still the sentence he needed most. Technical innocence. I looked at him quietly before answering. "I think you spent so much time protecting the line that you stopped caring how close you kept standing to it." His expression collapsed slightly. Not anger, not outrage, just sadness. Because deep down he knew exactly what I meant. Logan left without another argument. And once the door shut behind him, the apartment became unbearably silent. I stood there longer than I should have, staring at the empty hallway, listening to nothing. Then eventually I locked the door, walked back inside, and cried harder than I had in weeks. Not because I regretted ending it, because grief still exists even when the decision is right. The next few weeks felt strange. Quiet mornings, no random texts, no familiar footsteps in my kitchen. I kept expecting my phone to light up with his name. Sometimes it did. "Hope you got home safe. Saw something that reminded me of you. Miss talking to you." I answered politely but carefully. Never cold, never inviting. And I think that was when reality finally started settling in for him. Because once someone stops fighting to keep you, you realize how much of the relationship depended on their effort. About 3 weeks after the breakup, Camille convinced me to go out with her and a few friends downtown. I almost said no, then realized staying frozen inside my apartment was helping nobody. So I went. Nothing dramatic happened. No revenge dress moment. No cinematic scene where Logan saw me across the room looking happier without him. Real life is quieter than that. But near the end of the night, while waiting near the valet stand outside the restaurant, Camille touched my arm lightly. "Don't look immediately," she murmured. Of course I looked immediately. Across the street, standing near the corner beneath a glowing traffic light, was Logan. He was not with anyone. He just stood there watching. And the second our eyes met, I saw something on his face I had not seen before. Loss. Real loss. Camille whispered, "Do you want to leave?" I looked at him for another second, then slowly shook my head. No. Because for the first time in months, I did not feel afraid of the conversation anymore. Logan crossed the street carefully and stopped a few feet in front of me. Up close, he looked exhausted, like someone who had finally run out of distractions. "Hey," he said quietly. "Hey." An awkward silence followed. Then he glanced down and admitted, "I didn't think you'd actually let me go." That sentence hit harder than I expected because it was honest. He truly believed I would keep loving him loudly enough to absorb everything indefinitely. I folded my arms lightly against the cold night air. "You asked for freedom," I said softly. I just stopped standing underneath it." Logan lowered his eyes. "I thought freedom would feel different." There it was, finally, the truth underneath everything. He did not want freedom from the relationship. He wanted freedom from accountability while keeping the relationship intact. But once the emotional safety net disappeared, freedom stopped feeling exciting. It started feeling empty. "I miss you," he admitted. Part of me still loved him enough that hearing those words hurt, but pain and clarity can exist together. "I know," I said softly. Hope flickered across his face for half a second, so I gently continued before he could misunderstand. And I think you missed the version of me who kept trying to make everything okay. The hope disappeared because he knew I was right. For a moment, neither of us spoke. Traffic lights changed overhead while distant city noise hummed around us. Then Logan asked the question that mattered most. So that's it? I looked at him carefully, at the man I once imagined building a future beside, the man I still cared about despite everything. Then I answered honestly, I think sometimes people ask for trust when what they really want is permission. He stared at me silently. And eventually, I continued, the person giving that permission gets tired of disappearing inside it. Logan's eyes lowered again. No argument this time. No defensiveness. No accusations about control. Just acceptance arriving too late to save anything. A black car pulled up beside the curb for Camille and me. Before getting in, I looked at Logan one last time. The saddest part was realizing I no longer wanted him to explain himself. Because once someone teaches you to question your own instincts long enough, peace only comes when you finally stop ignoring them. Then I got into the car, and for the first time in months, the silence around me no longer felt heavy. It felt free.